Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelstein for ChessOpeningsExplained.com, and today I want to show you cool trap in the BOGO based on our black book. So let's jump right into it. So after d4, knight f6, c4, e6, the BOGO is when white plays knight to f3. Notice the difference and the similarity as well. In the Nimzo, the other knight goes to c3 with the idea to play e4. This is vital to understand. That's why we play the move bishop b4, pinning the knight. Well, guess what? The beautiful thing about the Nimzo and the BOGO that these openings are related. After knight f3, we play bishop to b4 check. So the big difference, of course, is knight c3 would transpose to the Nimzo. So this is a totally different opening. Whereas bishop d2 or knight bd2 is sort of the classic BOGO that you have to know. BOGO Indian, that is. So what happens after the main line bishop to d2? Well, we recommend the move queen e7, as you probably remember. And here, white's most common move is g3. White is trying to go for the rapid development with bishop g2, castles, and putting pressure on the long diagonal, trying to take advantage that temporarily the bishop on c8 is sort of not developed. Here it's very important to know this trap that could happen in your games. I've seen dozens and dozens of games of top players, even my students, where this trap happened. So the move now is knight c6. It's very important that we start with this move. You may not understand it yet, but once you see the full trap, you will get the whole picture. Again, for those of you who have studied this in detail, this is just a review. Again, you can download all of this from the PGN Black Book. And after bishop g2, right, very logical move. Here, it's very important that you take on d2 right away. Bishop takes d2 check. And the trap starts if white captures on d2 with the wrong piece. So the most logical move is to take with the queen, which by the way is the mistake, and to play knight c3, e4, securing the center. The knight on c3 puts more pressure, white will get an advantage. But this is why it's very important that you remember this trap. Knight e4 exclam is the key move, and it turns out that white doesn't really have a good way of avoiding loss of material or ruining his pawn structure. For instance, queen c2, now again, very important move, queen b4 check. And no matter how white blocks from the check, he runs into problems. The most logical move is knight b to d2. Now this knight on c6 plays a vital role because you can probably see that by force, white is gonna drop a pawn. So if you need more time, go ahead and pause the video. And for those of you who already know the sequence, it's quite simple. It's a forcing move, knight takes d2. And now white's probably best try is to take with the queen to drop the c-pawn and simply castle. Honestly though, white does not have sufficient compensation for advantage. If anything, maybe for equality. Black has many plans. Black can simply play d5, castle himself, little by little develop, and white's bishop on g2 is just simply terrible. So this is white's best try, by the way. Knight takes d2 is a big mistake because of knight takes d4, and the trap worked 100% of the time. White is down a pawn. There's really no compensation whatsoever. So this is very important that you guys remember this. Now, what happens if, for instance, after queen c2, queen check, knight goes to c3? Well, in this case, black just gets a much better endgame. After knight takes, queen takes. If you take with the pawn, again, same problem. Queen takes c4. White doesn't have sufficient compensation for the pawn, and black is simply better. So if queen takes c3, though, we get a much better endgame because these pawns are terrible. This pawn is kind of weak as well. So the simple plan here is to play d6, for instance, castles, bishop d7. If he ever plays rook b1, we can play knight a5, for instance. And if knight d2, now we just need to go for b6 plan, but because of the pin, we gotta move the rook out of the way. And let's say he just makes some neutral move. We play b6, and already black is much better. Later on, you can castle or king e7, and the plan is to play, for instance, king e7, c5, rook h to c8, and just simply win one of these pawns later on. Again, big advantage in the endgame. So going back, after queen b4 check, there's really not a good way for white to avoid losing material. Of course, king f1 is going to result in really bad king. Same, king d1, knight takes f2. We pretty much exhausted all the moves. In all of these cases, white gets a bad position. So what's the right move here for white? Well, the right move is to take with the knight. And this is a huge achievement for black. The knight belongs on c3. It is totally misplaced on d2. And black very simply gets a good counterplay. For instance, castles, castles, d6 with very simple plan, putting the pawns on this nice, beautiful pawn chain, opening up the bishop. White usually tries to win the center, e5, d5. And now this is very important. We need to fight for the c5 outpost. Knight b8 is the key move. Why b8? Because the knight is going to get redirected to a6. a5 helps us control the b4 square. Knight's going to go to c5. The bishop is wide open on this diagonal, quite beautiful. And black is simply better. So let's make a couple more moves. I don't know, let's say white plays rook e1, a5, rook c1. I'm just going to make some random moves for white. Queen c2, knight c5, and that's it. You have accomplished your goal. And if white tries to hit you with a3, b4, then once again, you have to know this very important move. a3 is always met by a4. This one pawn does a good job of stopping b4, because now if he ever plays b4, we're going to take en passant, followed by b6, securing this knight, and tons of pressure on the a file. This is already big advantage for black. White has no counterplay and stands worse. So let's quickly review this trap in the BOGO. So after these main moves, bishop check, bishop d2, knight c6, bishop g2 check, you have to take with the knight, as I just mentioned. Queen takes is an inaccuracy, or rather a mistake altogether. Knight e4 exclam, very important to hit the queen, and queen b4 check. These two aggressive moves prove that white's development has some issues, and if knight bd2, we simply take. If queen takes, that drops the c pawn, and if knight takes, that drops the d pawn. So knight c3 is white's best try, but as we review, this endgame is quite unpleasant. You simply play d6, followed by bishop d7, knight a5, rook b8, b6, and king e7, rook c8, c5. Excellent, excellent position for black. So again, very important plan, probably one of the most important traps you have to remember in the BOGO, and I hope you get to use this idea and remember it in your own games. Thank you very much. This was Grandmaster Eugene Perelstein for ChessOpeningsExplained.com.